All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Kevin Gilmore. I'm a meteorologist here at the National Weather Service New Orleans Baton Rouge office located in Salado, Louisiana. We're going ahead and get started and talk about the tropics. We've made it pretty quiet most of the season, and it's been rather nice as far as very minimal impacts this time of year. But as expected, tropics are starting to heat up, and here we are. So we got a system to discuss that's in the process of formation right now in the Caribbean. We got other systems too. You can see right behind me. There's a good amount of other systems too across the central and northern Atlantic. But for this briefing, we're going to be talking more about Tropical Depression 9, which is formed in the Caribbean and is now forecast to continue towards the northwest, which could be impacting portions of the United States coming up here. So there's a lot of days between now and that time, so we're going to be kind of taking this a step at a time. So what we're going to decide to do with this type of briefing is discuss the storm itself, what we know, and then talk about what you can do as far as preparation. So this is kind of like a tropical update plus a hurricane preparedness live briefing here. So we're going to go ahead and get started first. I always like to start these with what's going on right now, current situational overview, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the details. So let's see if I can go ahead and show my screen here. There we go. The infrared imagery across the Atlantic Basin. A lot going on here. This is infrared satellite imagery. This is just a geostationary satellite measuring the cloud top temperatures. The brighter the colors, the colder the cloud tops, which usually is an indication that these clouds are very high in the troposphere. The higher you go, the colder the air. So that's a good indication of convection or just thunderstorms. So we see Fiona, which is racing now towards the east-northeast, passing Bermuda, which will be impacting Nova Scotia. That is not going to be a direct impact to the U.S. mainland. Gaston as well over towards the Azores. Tropical Depression 10 has formed off of Africa. And then we got TD9, of course, which is now in the generally the central Caribbean now, and will continue off towards the west. And that's going to be the system we're going to be focusing on the most. And it's encountering a little bit of wind shear, believe it or not, actually right now. And this is this is a higher resolution, zoomed in video imagery of TD9, showing that you see all those thunderstorms which are skewed a little bit off to the east and south, or excuse me, west and southwest, and you can almost see a little swirl there right in the middle of the screen. That's the actual circulation. That's the low itself. And when thunderstorms are skewed off like that a little bit, that's an indication that we actually are seeing wind shear impacting the system. Now, for tropical systems to become strong and healthy, they don't need wind shear. They need the least amount of wind shear possible to become vertically stacked in the troposphere and then strengthen from there, assuming we have warm water temperatures and under other very good environmental factors like no dry air or anything like that. So right now we're showing what could be, again, some skewed development when it comes to like convection off to the west and southwest. But this is not forecast to last for a while, though. This is only now and here in the short term, as current forecast models and the latest forecast has indicated this system to steadily develop over the next several days. So this is going to become a focus here for all interest in the Gulf Coast states, all the way even up across Florida and even the Atlantic. All will be needing to watch this system. So let me just jump back here again and show you the latest on Tropical Depression 9. This is the 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory. The system, like I mentioned, is in generally the central to maybe east central Caribbean, is continuing off towards the west with slow and steady development, is going to continue, passing just south roughly of Jamaica, and then coming up towards Cuba. Now, once it gets to that point south of Jamaica, this is going to be later this weekend, going into early next week, there is a potential the system could strengthen into a hurricane and may become a category 1 or 2 as it crosses Cuba. Now, from this point, the confidence gets a lot lower. Now, as you see there, there's two little cones there, actually. If you can kind of see, the white solid one is the forecast for the next 3 days, and then the dotted one is the one for the next 5 days. So the cone gets larger because confidence gets lower. That's a large area of Florida. When you get to day 5, that's in that cone. That's 400 miles in diameter. Where we're talking about this cone versus from the last 5 years, we've determined that the storms usually track within 2/3 inside this cone. So 2/3 of the time the storm tracks within this cone. That's 2/3. Sometimes it can deviate from that. And confidence in that dotted area is a little bit lower than normal because model guidance has not really been able to really hone in on a very certain path right now, because honestly, the system has still been developing. We know that there was even less confidence yesterday and the day before, because by that point this was just a disturbance, and a very weak one at that, just north of Venezuela. But now the storm is starting to kind of consolidate a low pressure center, and eventually we're going to get those thunderstorms to rotate around that center and the storm will strengthen. And when it does, models will kind of get in line a little bit better with time. So the whole message here is that models will get a little bit better as the storm continues to strengthen and models start to initialize better on it. But for right now, we're in the time frame now where we can kind of get a general idea on the path and motion of it. And now be aware too that with this latest 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory, we're now advertising a major hurricane that's category 3 or greater, possibly impacting portions of southern Florida. Just be aware, again, that's a large cone and there can be shifts in this far out. So any interest, and not just in the cone, but all across the Gulf Coast, from Texas all the way to Florida, need to watch the system. This is going to be very likely be a hurricane in the Gulf, getting around early Tuesday time frame. But there may be some deviations with this as we get a little bit closer. Now, as far as impacts for us, if we're to use this current forecast from the National Hurricane Center, we're not expecting any direct impacts if the track remains on its current track. If the forecast remains on track, we're not going to experience any extreme impacts other than enhanced waves and seas or swells, especially for the outer waters of southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi, and maybe some rip current risk as well for Grand Isle and Ship Island. But mostly it'll just be a marine risk for those areas. Really, by that time, we'll be kind of like on the drier side. So that's one thing to kind of mention there. So going ahead here too with the whole overview, like we were just talking about. Yeah, with the whole overview, there's a lot going on in the tropics right now. Definitely a lot going on. Let's see, I want to make sure my stream is still going here. It seems like I'm getting a little hiccup here. Yeah, it looks like my stream is still going. Just want to make sure everything's still good. Okay, we'll go back to where we were. But showing you again, current overview of everything, what we just talked about with Fiona and other storms around. None of these are going to be a major significant impact to the mainland U.S. Gaston is not going to be a major impact. 10, we're going to have to watch about which one will be Hermine and which one will be Ian. That's the H and I name. It depends on which one will develop first. So there's a possibility one may become named before the other one. So we'll just have to kind of watch it right now. But for now, this is currently what we're expecting. Going ahead here too. Now we've been actually passing along this graphic for quite a while now. And this is kind of helping people understand what the most reasonably, like what you can reasonably expect from a hurricane forecast this far out. Now, we were showing recently we were within that 7+ day time frame, but now this is a little bit different now. Now we're between that 5 and 7 day time frame. So that's where we're starting to get a better idea of possibilities. You saw what the track I just showed you. And we're starting to maybe get down to where we can kind of get a general idea, but we still can't narrow down specifics. We can't talk about major impact, major landfall. But what you should do is monitor official forecasts, review plans, and refresh your supplies. Please stay fresh to the latest forecast information. And when we're talking about monitor official forecasts, we're talking basically about reliable information. We want to emphasize the use of following your forecast from the National Hurricane Center. They are the experts that interrogate and look at this model guidance, because model guidance is just tools. They're not gospel. They're not telling you what will happen. They're just a computer program full of complex, dynamical, physical, mathematical equations that we can't do in our heads that can predict what might happen in the future. But the whole point there is might happen in the future. They're a tool. It takes expert interrogation to determine where the best idea of where a storm might go. That's why we have that forecast from the National Hurricane Center. So that's why do not focus on individual model tracks or intensities. Follow the National Hurricane Center. Of course, and stick to the experts. Like I just said, there's your nhc.noaa.gov is the website. From the graphic that I just showed you, at a local level is the National Weather Service. That's who we are. We're one of 122 warning forecast offices in the United States. And we kind of pertain to impacts to our local area. But of course, we want to do these briefings to give people a heads up. And please follow local news and broadcast meteorologists too. They're constantly posting information. They're doing updates on television. They'll let you know the latest with the system as well, but they're experts too. Most of them are meteorologists too, and they will help you know what to do and how to prepare for the potential impacts of a system. So I wanted to actually show this. This is something I'm doing a little bit different this go around. It's commonly asked questions because I have a feeling this is what a lot of people are thinking or want to ask. Where will it go? Will it hit here? That's probably one of the most common questions of this, but here's your answers. The system is not currently expected to bring any significant impacts to this area of Southeast Louisiana or South Mississippi. However, we want you to monitor the forecast as there could be some changes in the extended forecast due to the lower level of uncertainty. We have a lower level confidence with that day 3 through 5 area, like I just mentioned before. There could be some changes. So everyone along the Gulf Coast should be watching this system. I have vacation planned late next weekend. Should I change or cancel my plans? We cannot make that decision for you. If you're asking us what you should do, we can't do that. You need to stay updated with the latest official forecast before decisions are made. Just know there's a lot of variation here. There may be some changes coming up. What can I do now? Review your hurricane plan. Make sure you got all the supplies you need, fresh batteries. Just make sure that plan is up to date. Should there be a significant change in the track and maybe the threat increases, then maybe that would be something that would require you to, have to update your plans and have to take action. But for now, we're not worried about that part of the forecast. So we say this too. We want to make sure the sound is going again. It looks like we're having ups and downs with the sound. Let me just make sure everything is good here. Testing 1, 2. Let's see if we can get this back up here. One quick second. Okay. All right. Looks like we are up. Okay. Yep. All right, we're back up here. So we'll go ahead and finish this out now. We've been showing this too also. Do you suffer from storm anxiety? Yeah, we know that we've had a really hard time the last 2 years. It's been a very difficult time for a lot of us with Ida and Zeta and other major systems that have impacted the area. Here's some tips for reducing stress. Just relax, stay informed, and don't seek out the worst case scenario. We don't want you going to unreliable sources on social media or online for advice on what to do. We want you to stick to official sources. Learn about local warning systems and how to get information. Take action to prepare ahead of time. Being prepared ahead of time means less stress when the system potentially impacts your area. So please relax, just stay informed. That's all you can do in this type of a situation. But again, like we were just showing here, we'll end here with the track from Tropical Depression 9, is that the current impacts currently is expected to be east of the area, but be aware that uncertainty remains with the track, especially from day 3 through 5. That's going to be early next week into next weekend, or early next week into the middle of next week, possibly late next week as well. So we'll do this one, we'll take this one step at a time. We're going to also really try to continue doing these updates as well when new information comes across. We're going to try and do another Facebook Live also early next week. And depending on how the track goes, if there's significant changes, it may be more frequent than that. But we're going to do our job by keeping you as informed as possible. Please follow us on Twitter and Facebook at National Weather Service New Orleans. It's how you can follow us on YouTube as well. We're live streaming on YouTube. And again, we'll be here to pass along the latest updates when they come across. So thanks so much for joining. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.